And Fitch Ratings has downgraded Afreximbank's long-term issuer default rating from BBB to BBB negative, with a negative outlook, citing rising credit risk and weak risk management. The bank's short-term IDR was also lowered to F3 from F2, while long-term ratings on its medium-term note program dropped to BBB-. Fitch attributed the downgrade to a solvency assessment revision from A- to BBB+, after non-performing loans exceeded the 6% high-risk threshold at the end of 2024. The agency highlighted a shift in Afreximbank's risk profile from moderate to high. We have Dr. Femi Egbesola, President, Association of Small Business Owners of Nigeria, joining us now. Thank you for joining us this holiday.
And thank you for having me. Happy holiday.
Yes, same to you too. So what would you say Fitch's downgrade of Afreximbank's rating to BBB negative? What does it signal to investors and other African economies as well?
Well, it means that the Afreximbank needs to strengthen its governance. It means that they need to do more when it comes to transparency, particularly when it comes to transparency on loan reporting. It also means that there is need to do more about managing their risk. But that does not mean that Afrexim is becoming unfunctional or failing. Rather, it is a precautionary measure, a signal that more needs to be done, particularly in the governance of Afrexim. And definitely it will slightly reduce the confidence of investors. But some of us are of the opinion that Afrexim, with this report and rating, will come back to their feet and do what is normal. We also believe that Afrexim still remains the...
Are you there, Doctor?
Oh, yes. Can you hear me now?
Yes, you said Afrexim still remains the...
Yes, Afrexim still remains one of the giants when it comes to Africa development. We still believe very strongly in the health of their finances, and we believe that they will still do more in supporting Africa, particularly after, because in the after arrangement, they are one of the very strong participants in the after framework. And this rating for me is not a red flag, rather it is a call to do more.
Right, and we know that this downgrade, you've highlighted matters of transparency, and you have said it's a call to do more. You said that they'll bounce back, but you know, one is wondering what it's going to take for them to bounce back. We know that yes, there's a transparency issue in their reporting, but then there's also conversation about misclassification of Afreximbank's sovereign exposure to governments of Ghana, South Sudan, Zambia, and non-performing loans. Can you give us a picture of what's happening with these countries and their relationship with Afreximbank and their loan profile?
Yes, I think what really happened is that funding, particularly to many of the African countries, or to what we call sovereign loans, are done based on credibility or trustworthiness. Most times, credibility and trustworthiness does not really work the way it should be, particularly in third world countries. And I think Afreximbank has been overly exposed to some of these countries, particularly some of the countries just mentioned, and it is now affecting their books, their financials. And what this means is that Afrexim needs to be doing more when it comes to collateralization. They are very heavy in collateralization, but they still need to do more. They need to ensure that funds that are given out come back in record time. And they need to also be more transparent when it comes to reporting some of these financial transactions, particularly in terms of loans. We are also looking forward to a new governance structure or an improved governance structure being imbibed now by the Afreximbank in their financial dealings or transactions. We also look forward to begin to see a way where Afrexim will begin to tighten its belts when it comes to funding. Tighten its belts, not that they will not give out funds, but that they will set out very credible criteria that will ensure that funds that go out definitely comes back. We also look forward to improved reporting. It's important that every stakeholder knows the health, or particularly financial health of the bank, and reporting it is one of the key ways to doing so. Over time, in a very short time, we see Afrexim bouncing back. We see the rating getting improved, and we see them continuing to do what they've been doing in Africa, supporting economies, supporting growth, supporting trade, and supporting after.
All right. I mean, we'll see how Afrexim, goes ahead in the future with this downgrade. But we have the African Union body that is tackling Fitch now over this downgrade, the African Peer Review Mechanism, which is an instrument of AU members. I'm going to quote what they've said. They said the loan extended by Afreximbank to its members countries are governed by a framework of intergovernmental cooperation and mutual commitment rather than typical commercial risk principles. Legally, it is incongruent to classify a loan to member countries as non-performing because borrower states are shareholders in the lender's institution, no formal default has occurred, and none of the sovereigns have repudiated obligations. So, I mean, what are your thoughts on the AU's response? What's happening here? Basically discounting Fitch's downgrade.
Well, in a way, they may be right, but we must also understand that Fitch is comparing records with other peers in other countries, particularly developed economies, and we just must work with one standard. We must not have a different standard from that of other parts of the economies. We must continue to align, and when we come to aligning, we must be able to reach the benchmark set by regulatory bodies, particularly international regulatory bodies. I think this is where Afrexim have not done too well. Some of us also see that it is a perceived perception of the Fitch about the reporting. We believe that there may be some gaps that are there, but unfortunately, it may not have been well recorded by Afrexim. We will also believe that over time, this will be definitely corrected. We are looking very, very forward to the future with optimism that this will be corrected. I also want to say that for us in the MSME space, because it's also important for us to have the feelings of what is going on, particularly in the continent and even globally. For us in the MSME space, it is sending to us a signal that we also must begin to prepare ourselves well, look for alternative funding when it comes to trade intra and inter-Africa, and particularly to the global economies. We must also get ourselves credit-worthy and credit-ready and make ourselves informed about new ways of funding such that we do not all depend on one institution like many are doing in Africa now, depending solely on Afreximbank. That will help them to also, in a way, be able to concentrate more on more important things, and at the same time to be able to look at how they can improve their governance. I believe this cautionary measure being shunned out by Fitch, I see it as a cautionary measure, not a need for us to panic. We now help Afrexim to sit down, put records straight, and begin to do things better.
I mean, yes, from what you're saying, nothing to panic about, but it's time for SMEs to begin to seek out alternatives and not over-depend on Afreximbank, that's Africa's Export-Import Bank. And that sort of signals to the fact that you suspect that this downgrade could affect the bank's ongoing projects to support African economies. Do you see that happening?
Well, in the short term, it may not happen, but if this is not improved upon in the very short time, it will definitely impact on the MSME funding over time in the long term. But for us, I think there's need for us to begin to inform our members in the MSME space. We also need to begin to let them know that there's need to intervene with alternative funding platforms. We have a lot of funding platforms. You have mentioned some. We have so many other funding platforms, DFIs and all of that, both nationally and globally. We also need to also get them prepared for funding. Prepared for funding would mean that they must just get their business structured. It's not the time for wishful thinking or good luck. It's a time to get prepared if we want to remain as SMEs who are relevant both in the national, and the continental, and the global markets.
All right, Dr. Femi Egbesola, President, Association of Small Business Owners of Nigeria. It's been a pleasure getting your thoughts on this conversation.
Thank you very much, and I wish Afreximbank all the best.